The silence of space stretched endlessly around the eclipse, a mid-sized exploration vessel that floated quietly among the stars. Its crew had been traveling for weeks, far from Earth and deep into regions of the galaxy no human had ever mapped. The ship was not large or particularly advanced compared to some of the newer models back home, but it was sturdy and reliable, a workhorse designed for long journeys into the unknown. On board, Captain Nathan Brooks stood on the bridge, his sharp blue eyes scanning the array of monitors and displays in front of him. He was a man who carried the weight of responsibility well, his square jaw set firmly as he studied the faint blip that had appeared on their scanners. "Captain," called out Lavra Klein, the ship's communications officer. Her voice broke through the quiet hum of the ship's systems. She sat at her station, her fingers moving quickly over the controls. "We've picked up something unusual." Nathan turned toward her, his brow furrowing slightly. "What is it?" "It's a signal," Lavra replied, glancing up at him before returning her focus to her screen. "It's weak, distorted, like it's been bouncing around out there for a while, but it's definitely artificial." Artificial signals were rare this far from Earth, most of the time. They turned out to be echoes from old satellites or debris left behind by previous missions. But something about this one felt different. Nathan moved closer to Laura's station, leaning over her shoulder to get a better look at the data streaming across her monitor. "Can you clean it up?" he asked. Lavon nodded and adjusted a few settings. After several minutes of concentrated effort, she managed to isolate part of the transmission. The room fell silent as she played it back. At first, all they heard was static, random bursts of noise that made no sense. Then came a series of guttural sounds, harsh and alien, unlike anything any of them had ever encountered. Finally, amidst the chaos, a single phrase emerged, repeated over and over again, "Help, dying." The words were spoken in broken Galactic Standard, a language used by many species across the galaxy for basic communication. It wasn't perfect, but it was enough to send a chill down everyone's spine. Whoever or whatever was sending this message was clearly desperate. "Well," muttered Jake Riley, the ship's engineer, breaking the silence. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. "That doesn't sound good," no one responded immediately. Instead, they exchanged uneasy glances. Space was vast and full of mysteries, and humanity was still relatively new to exploring it. Encountering an alien civilization was both thrilling and terrifying, especially when that encounter began with a cry for help. "We need to figure out where it's coming from," Nathan said finally, straightening up. His tone was calm but firm, the kind of voice that inspired confidence even in uncertain situations. "Lavra, can you trace the origin?" "I'll try," Lavra replied, already working on triangulating the source of the signal. Her hands flew over the console as she inputted commands and analyzed the data. Minutes passed, each one feeling longer than the last. Finally, she looked up. "Got it. The signal is coming from a system about 3 light years away. Coordinates are locked in." Nathan nodded thoughtfully. 3 light years wasn't exactly close, but it was within range if they pushed the eclipse to its limits. Still, venturing into uncharted territory was risky business. They had no idea what or who they might find waiting for them. "What do we know about this area?" he asked, turning to Elena Martinez, the ship's biologist. Elena was young but brilliant, with a knack for understanding ecosystems and environments that others found baffling. "Not much," Elena admitted, flipping through pages of data on her tablet. "There are no records of human activity there, and our charts don't show anything significant. No planets listed as habitable, no known colonies or outposts. It's basically a blank spot on the map." "That doesn't mean it's empty," Jake interjected. "Just because we haven't been there doesn't mean someone else hasn't." "Exactly," Nathan agreed. "And whoever sent that message obviously knows we're out here listening. Whether they want us to come or not remains to be seen." The decision weighed heavily on him. Going after the signal meant leaving behind the relative safety of their current position and heading into potentially dangerous territory. But ignoring the plea for help went against everything Nathan believed in. Humanity had only begun to step onto the galactic stage. Turning away now would make them seem callous and indifferent. "Lavera," Nathan said after a moment of deliberation, "play the message again." She did as instructed, and once more the eerie combination of static and alien sounds filled the bridge. When the words, "Help, planet dying," repeated, Nathan closed his eyes briefly, letting the gravity of the situation sink in. Then he opened them, determination etched onto his face. "We're going," he announced. "Set course for those coordinates." Maximum speed, a murmur of agreement rippled through the crew. While fear lingered in the corners of their minds, curiosity and duty outweighed it. This was why they had signed up for deep space exploration, to push boundaries, uncover secrets, and maybe, just maybe, make a difference. As the Eclipse shifted into high gear, preparing to jump into hyperspace, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger than they could imagine. The message had been clear in its desperation, but vague in its details. Who had sent it? What kind of planet was dying? And most importantly, what role were they supposed to play in saving it? For now, answers remained elusive. All they could do was follow the trail and hope they weren't walking straight into a trap. But even as doubt lingered, Nathan reminded himself of one thing. Sometimes, taking risks was the only way to move forward. And if they succeeded, they might just prove that humanity was ready to stand alongside the stars, not as invaders or conquerors, but as helpers and allies. The engines roared to life, propelling the Eclipse toward its destination. Outside the windows, the stars blurred into streaks of light as the ship entered hyperspace. Inside, the crew prepared themselves for whatever lay ahead. Little did they know, their journey was about to take them farther from home and deeper into danger than they had ever imagined. The Eclipse emerged from hyperspace with a jolt, its systems humming as it adjusted to the new environment. The crew on the bridge held their breath as the viewport revealed the scene before them. What they saw was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. A massive planet loomed in the distance, its surface racked by violent storms and glowing fissures of molten rock. Jagged mountains pierced through thick layers of toxic clouds, while rivers of lava snaked across the terrain below, painting the world in shades of red and orange. It looked like something out of a nightmare, a place where life should not exist. "This is insane," muttered Jake Riley, the ship's engineer, as he stared at the view. His hands gripped the edge of his console tightly, his knuckles turning white. How does anything survive down there? Nathan Brooks, the captain, stood at the center of the bridge, his eyes scanning the chaotic landscape. He had seen plenty of strange worlds during his time in space, but this one was unlike anything he had ever encountered. It wasn't just the harsh conditions, it was the sheer scale of destruction. The planet seemed to be tearing itself apart, as if some great force was slowly consuming it from within. But what caught Nathan's attention even more than the planet itself was the fleet hovering above it. Dozens of ships surrounded the atmosphere, forming a loose blockade. Their designs were unfamiliar sharp angles, dark hulls, and ominous insignias etched into their exteriors. None of them resembled human vessels or any other species the crew had studied. They were alien in every sense of the word. "Captain," LeVar Klein, the communications officer, said hesitantly. "They're hailing us." Nathan nodded. "Put them on screen." A holographic image flickered to life on the main display. Standing before them was a tall, gaunt figure with elongated limbs that ended in claw-like appendages. Its skin was a deep gray, almost black, and its glowing red eyes seemed to pierce through the screen. The creature's voice carried an eerie resonance when it spoke. "You are not welcome here," it growled, its tone cold and commanding. "Leave now or face destruction." Silence fell over the bridge. The crew exchanged uneasy glances, their hearts pounding in their chests. This was not how they had expected to be greeted after traveling so far. But Nathan remained calm, his expression unreadable. He stepped closer to the screen, meeting the alien's gaze without flinching. "We received your distress signal," he said firmly. "We came to help." The alien paused, its glowing eyes narrowing slightly. For a moment, it simply stared at Nathan, as if trying to decide whether to believe him. Then, without warning, it stepped aside, revealing another figure behind It. This one was smaller and more fragile looking, lying prone on what appeared to be some sort of medical device. Its breathing was labored, and its shimmering skin pulsed faintly under dim lights. "Our world dies," the first alien admitted reluctantly, its voice tinged with bitterness. "Our technology fails us. If you can assist, do so. But know this, failure will mean your death." With that, the transmission cut off, leaving the crew staring at a blank screen. The tension in the room was palpable. No one spoke for several moments as they processed what they had just seen and heard. "Well," Jake said finally, breaking the silence, "that was unsettling." "That's one way to put it," Elena Martinez, the biologist, replied dryly. She leaned forward in her seat, her brow furrowed in thought. "Did anyone else notice how advanced their tech looks? I mean, those ships are incredible. Why would such a sophisticated civilization send out a cry for help?" "Maybe they've run out of options," Lavra suggested. "If their planet really is dying, they might be desperate enough to turn to outsiders, even humans." "But why us?" Jake asked. "We're not exactly experts at saving planets." "Because we answered," Nathan said quietly, drawing everyone's attention. He turned to face his crew, his expression serious. "Whatever's happening down there, they need help, and we're here. That's all that matters right now." Jake opened his mouth to argue, but closed it again. He knew better than to challenge. Nathan, when he got like this, focused, determined, and unwilling to back down. Still, unease lingered in the pit of his stomach. Something about this whole situation felt off. "All right," Nathan continued, "here's what we're going to do. Lava, keep monitoring their communications. See if you can pick up anything useful. Jake, run diagnostics on the shuttle. We'll need it ready in case we have to go down to the surface. Elena, start analyzing what little data we have on the planet. I want to know everything we can learn before we make contact." The crew sprang into action, each person heading to their respective stations. As they worked, Nathan stood by the viewport, gazing at the alien fleet surrounding the doomed planet. Despite their intimidating appearance, there was something tragic about them. These beings were fighting to save their home, just as humanity would fight to protect Earth, and yet, despite their advanced technology, they were losing. Hours passed as the crew prepared for whatever lay ahead. Finally, Lavra spoke up. "Captain, they're hailing us again." Nathan turned back to the main screen, where the same gaunt alien appeared once more. This time, however, its demeanor seemed less hostile and more resigned. "You claim to wish to help," it said, its voice still carrying an edge of suspicion. "Prove it. Come aboard our flagship. We will discuss terms." Nathan exchanged a glance with his crew. None of them liked the idea of boarding an alien vessel, especially one belonging to a species that had initially threatened them. But refusing the invitation could ruin any chance of cooperation. "Understood," Nathan replied. "We'll come peacefully." The alien nodded curtly before ending the transmission. Moments later, a set of coordinates appeared on the navigation console, indicating where the shuttle should dock. As the team gathered in the hangar bay, Nathan addressed them one last time. "Stay sharp," he said, his tone firm but reassuring. "We don't know what to expect, but remember why we're here. Stick together, follow my lead, and don't do anything reckless." With that, they boarded the shuttle and launched toward the alien flagship. The journey was short but tense, the massive ship looming larger with every passing second. When they docked, the airlock hissed open, revealing a group of aliens waiting for them. Their weapons were drawn, their glowing eyes fixed on the humans with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. One of the aliens stepped forward, taller and more imposing than the others. "Follow me," it commanded, its voice low and guttural. The crew obeyed, following the alien through narrow corridors lined with intricate carvings and pulsating veins of light. The interior of the ship was as alien as its exterior, filled with strange symbols and machinery that hummed softly. Despite their fear, the humans couldn't help but marvel at the craftsmanship. They were led to a large chamber where the leader, the same alien who had spoken to them earlier, waited. Behind it lay the frail figure they had seen earlier, still lying motionless on the medical device. Tubes and wires connected it to various machines, keeping it alive. "This is our leader," the imposing alien said, gesturing to the frail being. "Its condition reflects the state of our world. Without intervention, both will perish." Elena took a cautious step forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "What caused this?" she asked. "What's happening to your planet?" The leader hesitated before responding. "Centuries ago, we sought to control nature, to bend it to our will. We created technologies to manipulate the very fabric of our world. At first, it worked. Our civilization thrived. But over time, the balance shifted. The systems we built began to fail, and now they threaten to destroy everything." Nathan frowned. "And you haven't been able to fix it?" "We have tried," the leader admitted bitterly. "But our resources are depleted and our knowledge has limits. Your arrival may be our last hope." The weight of the situation settled heavily on the humans. They had come expecting to offer assistance, but now they realized just how monumental the task ahead of them truly was. Saving this planet wouldn't be easy, it might not even be possible. But they couldn't walk away, not when so much was at stake. "We'll do everything we can," Nathan promised, his voice steady. "But we'll need your cooperation. Share your knowledge, your tools, anything that might help us understand the problem." The leader regarded him silently for a moment before nodding. "Very well, you will have access to our archives. Begin your work immediately." As the humans were escorted to a separate section of the ship, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were stepping into uncharted territory, not just physically, but morally. They had come to help, but doing so meant delving into the secrets of a dying civilization. Whatever happened next, one thing was certain: their lives and, perhaps, the fate of an entire world depended on their success. The humans were led to a vast chamber deep within the alien flagship, its walls lined with glowing panels that pulsed faintly, casting an eerie light over everything. The room was filled with rows of consoles and screens, each displaying streams of data and symbols and patterns that none of them could understand. At the center of the chamber stood a large holographic display, projecting a three-dimensional image of the dying planet below. Rivers of molten rock snaked across its surface, while violent storms churned in its atmosphere. It was both beautiful and horrifying, a world on the brink of collapse. "This is our command center," the imposing alien who had escorted them said, gesturing to the room. "Here, you will find everything we know about the crisis. Use it wisely." Elena Martinez stepped forward, her eyes wide as she took in the sight. She had spent her life studying ecosystems, but nothing could have prepared her for this. "This is incredible," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "Their technology is so advanced, yet their planet is falling apart? How does something like this happen?" Jake Riley, the ship's engineer, leaned in closer to one of the consoles, squinting at the unfamiliar symbols. "Yeah, well, let's hope they've got some kind of manual lying around. I don't even know where to start with this stuff." Nathan Brooks, the captain, ignored Jake's comment and turned to the alien. "We'll need someone to help us make sense of all this. Someone who can translate your systems into terms we can understand." The alien nodded and gestured to another figure standing nearby, a smaller, more slender being with smooth, silver skin and large, almond-shaped eyes. "This is Vera," the alien said. "She will assist you." Vera stepped forward, her movements graceful and deliberate. She tilted her head slightly, studying the humans with an expression that seemed almost curious. "I will guide you," she said in halting galactic standard. Her voice was soft but clear, lacking the harshness of the other alien's tones. "Ask, and I will answer." "Good," Nathan replied, nodding. "Let's get started." For hours, the crew worked tirelessly, poring over the alien data with Vera's help. Elena focused on understanding the biological aspects of the planet's ecosystem, while Jake tried to decipher the engineering behind the machines that controlled it. Lavra Klein, the communications officer, stayed close to Nathan, jotting down notes and asking questions whenever something didn't make sense. As they dug deeper, the picture became clearer and more alarming. Centuries ago, the aliens, calling themselves the Deathworlders, had developed a system to manipulate their planet's core. They believed they could harness its energy to sustain their civilization indefinitely. But their control had been imperfect, and over time, the core had destabilized. Now, cracks were forming, releasing torrents of magma and toxic gases that threatened to engulf the entire planet. "We created these machines to regulate the core," Vera explained, pointing to a section of the holographic display. "But they are failing. Without repair, the core will collapse entirely." "And if that happens?" Nathan asked, though he already suspected the answer. "The planet will be destroyed," Vera replied simply. "Our people will die." The weight of her words hung heavily in the air. The humans exchanged uneasy glances, realizing just how high the stakes were. Saving this planet wasn't just about fixing a broken machine, it was about preventing an extinction event. "We need to see the damage firsthand," Elena said suddenly, breaking the silence. "There's only so much we can learn from this data. If we go down to the surface, we might be able to identify the problem more clearly." Nathan frowned. "It's too dangerous. That planet looks like it could kill us in seconds." "But it's also the only way we'll figure out what's really going on," Elena insisted. "We're scientists, Captain. We solve problems by observing them directly." After a moment of hesitation, Nathan sighed. He knew she was right, but that didn't make the decision any easier. "All right," he said finally. "We'll go down there, but we move carefully. Stick together and don't take unnecessary risks." With Vera's assistance, the team prepared a shuttle equipped with environmental suits capable of withstanding the planet's harsh conditions. As they boarded, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into a trap or worse, a suicide mission. Still, he reminded himself why they were here, to help, no matter the cost. The descent was anything but smooth. The shuttle rocked violently as it entered the planet's turbulent atmosphere, buffeted by winds strong enough to tear apart lesser vessels. Outside the windows, the landscape was a blur of fire and smoke, jagged mountains rising like broken teeth from the chaos below. When they finally touched down, the team stepped out cautiously, their boots crunching against the brittle ground. The air was thick with ash and sulfur, and the heat radiated through their suits even with the cooling systems running at full capacity. It was unlike anything any of them had ever experienced, a place where survival felt like a miracle. "This is insane," Jake muttered, his voice crackling over the coms. "How do these guys live here?" "They don't anymore," Elena replied grimly. "Not without their machines, anyway." The team moved carefully, following Vera's guidance as she led them toward one of the key fault lines. Along the way, they encountered remnants of the Deathworlders' once great civilization, towering structures made of black metal, now crumbling under the strain of constant earthquakes. Strange plants pulsed faintly with energy, their roots embedded in the rocky soil. Everything seemed alive, yet unnatural, as if the planet itself had been twisted into something unrecognizable. "These plants, they're not natural," Elena said, kneeling beside one of the glowing organisms. She examined it closely, her gloved hands brushing against its surface. "They're synthetic biology, a fusion of organic material and machinery. Whoever built this ecosystem wanted to control every aspect of life here." "But it didn't work," Nathan observed, gazing at the ruins around them. "They played God, and now they're paying the price." Before anyone could respond, a deafening roar echoed through the canyon. The ground trembled beneath their feet, and a monstrous creature emerged from the shadows. It was unlike anything they had ever seen, a grotesque hybrid of flesh and steel, its body covered in patches of metal, plating fused to raw muscle. Its eyes glowed red, and its mouth opened to reveal rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Move!" Nathan shouted, drawing his weapon as the creature charged toward them. The team scattered, taking cover behind rocks and debris as the beast roared again, its massive claws slicing through the air. Jake fired a burst from his rifle, striking the creature's armored hide, but the shots barely fazed it. Instead, it turned its attention to him, letting out an ear-splitting screech. "Elena, get back to the shuttle," Nathan ordered, firing repeatedly at the creature's exposed joints. The others followed suit, their weapons blazing as they tried to slow the monster down. Vera moved swiftly, her slender frame darting between attacks. She activated a device on her wrist, emitting a high-pitched frequency that caused the creature to stagger momentarily. Seizing the opportunity, Nathan aimed for its head and fired. The shot hit its mark, and the beast collapsed with a final, guttural growl. Breathing heavily, the team regrouped, their hearts racing. "Is everyone okay?" Nathan asked, scanning his crew. "Yeah," Jake replied, lowering his weapon. "But we're not sticking around to meet any more of those things." Agreeing silently, the group hurried back to the shuttle, their minds racing with everything they had seen. The planet was a graveyard of failed experiments, a testament to the dangers of tampering with forces beyond comprehension. Yet despite the horrors they had witnessed, they couldn't give up, not when the fate of an entire species rested in their hands. As the shuttle lifted off, carrying them back to the safety of the flagship, Nathan stared out the window at the burning world below. He knew they had only scratched the surface of the problem, but one thing was certain: solving it would require courage, ingenuity, and perhaps a little bit of luck. And if they succeeded, they might just prove that even in the darkest corners of the universe, hope could still shine through. Back aboard the alien flagship, the humans gathered in the command center, their faces pale and drawn from the harrowing experience on the planet's surface. The shuttle ride had been tense, with everyone too shaken to speak. Even Jake Riley, who usually masked his fear with sarcasm, sat quietly as he ran diagnostics on the ship's systems. The memory of the monstrous hybrid creature still lingered in their minds, a chilling reminder of the dangers they faced. Nathan Brooks stood at the center of the room, his arms crossed as he studied the holographic display of the dying planet. He had seen enough to understand that this mission was far more complicated than he had anticipated. Saving the planet wasn't just about fixing a machine. It was about undoing centuries of mistakes made by a civilization that had pushed its limits too far. And yet, despite the enormity of the task, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were close to finding a solution. "We need to stabilize the core," Elena Martinez said, breaking the silence. She had been analyzing the data they had collected during their brief trip to the surface and had pieced together a theory. "The machines regulating the core are failing because they're overloaded. If we can distribute the energy more evenly, we might be able to buy some time." "Buy time for what?" Jake asked, looking up from his console. "Even if we fix the machines, the planet's already falling apart. Those storms, the lava flows, none of that's going away anytime soon." Elena hesitated, her brow furrowing as she considered his words. "It's not a permanent solution, I know, but it could give the Deathworlders a chance to evacuate or find another way to survive. At least it gives them hope." Hope, that was something they desperately needed. The Deathworlders had lost faith in their ability to save themselves, and without outside help, they were doomed. Nathan knew that even the smallest victory could make a difference. It wasn't just about the technology. It was about proving to these aliens and to his own crew that humanity was capable of making a difference. "All right," Nathan said finally, turning to face the group. "Let's focus on stabilizing the core. We'll use our nanotechnology combined with whatever resources the Deathworlders can provide. Lavra, reach out to their leader and explain the plan. We'll need full cooperation if this is going to work." Lavra nodded and approached one of the consoles, beginning the process of opening a communication channel. Meanwhile, Elena and Jake worked together to adapt their equipment for the task ahead. Vera, the silver-skinned alien who had accompanied them to the surface, watched silently, her large eyes following their every move. "You believe you can succeed where we have failed?" Vera asked after a moment, her voice soft but tinged with skepticism. "We have to try," Nathan replied firmly. "If there's even a small chance of saving your world, we owe it to you and to ourselves to take it." Vera tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. Then, without another word, she turned and left the room, presumably to report back to her leader. Hours passed as the humans prepared for the next phase of their mission. They worked tirelessly, refining their plan and gathering supplies. When the communication channel finally opened, the leader of the Deathworlders appeared on the main screen once again. Its glowing red eyes narrowed as it listened to Laura's explanation of their proposal. "You ask us to trust you," the leader said, its voice low and gravelly. "Why should we believe you can succeed where our greatest minds have failed?" "Because we have nothing to lose," Nathan interjected before Lavra could respond. "We came here to help, and we're willing to risk everything to do it, but we can't do it alone. We need your knowledge, your resources, and your people working alongside us." The leader studied him for a long moment, its expression unreadable. Finally it nodded. "Very well, you will have our support. Fail, and you will share our fate." With that, the transmission ended, leaving the humans to prepare for the most dangerous part of their mission yet. The plan was simple in theory, but perilous in execution. Deploy stabilizers into key fault lines across the planet's surface to redistribute the energy surging through the core. The stabilizers would act as anchors, slowing the collapse and giving the Deathworlders a fighting chance to save their world, or at least escape it. But deploying the stabilizers would require navigating the most hostile regions of the planet, areas even the Deathworlders avoided. To increase their chances of success, Nathan decided to split the team into two groups. One group, led by him, would handle the deployment of the stabilizers. The other, led by Jake, would stay aboard the Eclipse to monitor the operation and provide backup if needed. As they prepared to leave, two Deathworlder warriors joined Nathan's team. One was Kale, a tall and muscular alien with sharp features and an intimidating presence. The other was Vera, who had volunteered to guide them through the treacherous terrain. Despite their initial mistrust, the humans found themselves forming a tentative bond with their alien counterparts. Kale's combat skills proved invaluable during training exercises, while Vera's knowledge of the planet's ecosystem helped them anticipate potential threats. The journey back to the surface was just as chaotic as the first time, with the shuttle rattling violently as it descended through the planet's turbulent atmosphere. Once they landed, the team moved quickly, their environmental suits protecting them from the extreme heat and toxic air. The landscape was even more brutal up close, with rivers of molten rock carving paths through the jagged terrain and violent storms battering them with ash and debris. Their first stop was a massive fissure near the equator, where the ground glowed faintly with the light of the unstable core beneath. Nathan and Kale worked together to set up the stabilizer, their movements precise and efficient despite the chaos around them. Vera kept watch, her keen eyes scanning for any signs of danger, while Elena monitored the readings on her portable scanner. "This is insane," Jake's voice crackled over the comms. He was stationed aboard the Eclipse, coordinating with the team from above. "You're standing on top of a ticking time bomb, and you're acting like it's no big deal." "It's not a big deal until it blows up," Nathan replied, his tone dry but focused. "Just keep an eye on those readings and let us know if anything changes." "Copy that," Jake muttered. "Try not to get eaten by another monster while you're down there." Despite the tension, the team managed to complete the first deployment without incident. As they moved to the next location, however, things began to go wrong. A sudden earthquake sent tremors rippling through the ground, causing cracks to form beneath their feet. Nathan shouted for everyone to take cover as chunks of rock tumbled down from above. When the shaking subsided, Vera pointed toward a distant ridge. "There," she said urgently. "The next fault line is beyond that ridge, but we must hurry. The instability is spreading." The team pressed on, their pace quickening as they navigated the treacherous terrain. Along the way they encountered more of the grotesque hybrid creatures, though this time they were better prepared. Kale wielded a weapon that emitted bursts of energy, stunning the beasts long enough for the team to slip past. Still, each encounter left them more exhausted and aware of how close they were to disaster. At the final site, a massive chasm opened up before them, its depths glowing with molten fire. This was the most critical point, the heart of the instability. If they could deploy the stabilizer here, they might be able to slow the collapse of the core. But getting close enough to do so would be nearly impossible. "We'll have to rappel?" "Down," Nathan said, studying the edge of the chasm. Kale, you're with me. Vera, Elena, stand guard and keep an eye out for trouble. Kale nodded and secured his harness while Nathan double-checked the equipment. Together they descended into the fiery abyss, the heat intensifying with every meter they dropped. Below them, the stabilizer hummed softly, its mechanisms ready to anchor the unstable energy when they reached the bottom. Nathan and Kale worked quickly to position the device. Sweat poured down Nathan's face inside his suit, and his muscles burned from the effort, but he refused to slow down. Every second counted. Suddenly, a roar echoed through the chasm, louder and more menacing than any they had heard before. Nathan looked up to see a massive creature emerging from the shadows, its body covered in jagged metal plates and glowing veins of energy. It was larger and more aggressive than the others they had faced, and it was heading straight for them. Kale, finish the setup, Nathan shouted, drawing his weapon. I'll hold it off. Kale hesitated for a fraction of a second before nodding and focusing on the stabilizer. Nathan fired repeatedly at the creature, aiming for its weak points, but the beast barely flinched. It charged forward, forcing Nathan to dive out of the way as its massive claws slammed into the ground where he had been standing. Nathan, we're almost out of time. Jake's voice crackled over the coms. The core's destabilizing faster than expected. Just a little longer, Nathan yelled back, dodging another attack. His heart pounded in his chest as he realized how close they were to failure. If the stabilizer didn't activate soon, all their efforts would be for nothing. Finally, Kale's voice came through the coms. It's done. Activating now. A deep hum filled the air as the stabilizer powered up, its energy spreading outward in waves. The ground trembled violently, and the creature let out a deafening screech before the eclipse drifted silently through the void of space, its engines humming softly as it moved away from the Deathworlder system. Inside the ship, the crew gathered in the mess hall, their faces lined with exhaustion but also a quiet sense of accomplishment. They had faced unimaginable dangers and emerged victorious, not just for themselves, but for an entire alien civilization. The weight of what they had done was still sinking in. Nathan Brooks sat at the head of the table, his hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. He didn't drink it. Instead, he stared into the dark liquid, replaying the events of the past days in his mind. Every decision, every risk, every moment of fear, it all led to one undeniable truth. Humanity had proven itself capable of making a difference on a galactic scale. But that realization came with its own set of questions. What did it mean to be part of something so much bigger than themselves? And how would this experience shape their future? Lavra Klein broke the silence first. Do you think we'll ever see them again? She asked, her voice soft. She wasn't looking at anyone in particular, her gaze fixed on the wall as if searching for answers in the blank metal surface. Who knows? Jake Riley replied, leaning back in his chair. His usual sarcasm was absent, replaced by a tone of genuine curiosity. They're not exactly the kind of neighbors you drop by to visit, but I wouldn't be surprised if they reached out someday. We saved their world, after all. And they saved ours, Elena Martinez added quietly. She had been unusually subdued. Since returning from the mission, her thoughts consumed by the lessons she had learned on the planet below. I mean, think about it. If we hadn't gone there, we might never have realized how fragile life can be, even when you think you've got everything under control. Her words hung in the air, prompting nods of agreement around the table. The Deathworlders' mistakes were a stark reminder of the consequences of hubris, of believing that technology alone could solve every problem. Humanity was still young in the grand scheme of things, but the crew of the Eclipse had seen firsthand where arrogance could lead. Nathan finally spoke, his voice steady but thoughtful. What happened down there wasn't just about saving a planet. It was about learning humility. About understanding that no matter how advanced we become, we're still part of something much larger than ourselves, and maybe that's the most important lesson of all. The others listened intently, their expressions reflecting a mix of admiration and introspection. Nathan had always been a natural leader, but in moments like these, his wisdom shone brightest. He wasn't just guiding them through missions. He was helping them grow, both as individuals and as a team. As the conversation continued, the crew began sharing stories from their time on the planet, moments of tension, bravery, and even humor. Jake recounted the time he tripped over a glowing plant and nearly fell into a pool of molten rock, earning laughter from the group. Lavra described the eerie beauty of the hybrid creatures, their grotesque forms both terrifying and fascinating. Even Kale and Vera, the two Deathworlder warriors who had accompanied them, became part of the retelling. Their stoic demeanor had softened over time, revealing glimpses of personalities that transcended species. They weren't so different from us, Elena said eventually, her voice tinged with wonder. They made mistakes, sure, but they also cared deeply about their world, about survival, about hope. That's why they reached out, Nathan agreed. Even when they thought they were beyond help, they held on to that tiny spark of belief. And because of that, they gave us a chance to make a difference. The discussion shifted to what lay ahead. With the immediate crisis resolved, the Deathworlders had promised to work tirelessly to stabilize their planet further. They had shared some of their advanced technology with the humans as a gesture of gratitude, knowledge that could potentially benefit Earth scientists. In return, Nathan had offered ongoing support, should the Deathworlders need it in the future. "We've opened a door," Lavra said, her eyes lighting up with excitement. "This isn't just about one mission. It's about building relationships with other species, with the galaxy itself. Who knows what else is out there waiting for us?" Her enthusiasm was contagious, spreading smiles across the faces of her crewmates. For all the challenges they had faced, the idea of exploring the unknown filled them with a renewed sense of purpose. They were pioneers, charting paths where none had gone before, and now they carried with them the trust of an alien race. But beneath the optimism lingered a sobering reality. Not every encounter would end as peacefully or successfully as this one. Space was vast and unpredictable, filled with wonders and dangers alike. The crew knew that their journey was far from over and that each new adventure would test them in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Later that evening, Nathan stood alone on the bridge, gazing out at the endless expanse of stars. The view never failed to fill him with awe, a reminder of how small humanity truly was in the grand tapestry of existence. Yet in that smallness lay immense potential. By reaching out, by taking risks, by helping others, they had taken their first steps toward becoming something greater. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Turning, he saw Elena approaching, her tablet tucked under one arm. "Captain," she said hesitantly, "do you have a moment?" "Of course," Nathan replied, gesturing for her to join him. "What's on your mind?" Elena hesitated, then held out her tablet. On the screen was a series of notes and diagrams, sketches of the strange plants and creatures she had observed on the planet. "I've been thinking about the ecosystem down there," she explained. "It wasn't just broken machines causing the instability. There was balance once, a harmony between nature and technology. Maybe we can learn from that. Use it to improve our own methods of exploration and colonization." Nathan studied the images, nodding slowly. "You're right," he said. "If we can find a way to integrate what we've learned into our practices, we might avoid repeating the same mistakes." "That's worth pursuing," Elena smiled, relief washing over her. "Thank you, Captain. I'll start drafting a report for Earth Command." As she left the bridge, Nathan returned his attention to the stars. Somewhere out there, countless worlds awaited discovery, each with its own stories, challenges, and possibilities. The crew of the Eclipse had proven that humanity was ready to embrace those opportunities, not as conquerors or intruders, but as partners and protectors. Hours passed, and the ship continued its steady course through the cosmos. The crew retired to their quarters, allowing themselves a rare moment of rest. Tomorrow would bring new tasks, new decisions, and perhaps new adventures. But for now, they allowed themselves to savor the victory they had earned. In the darkness of space, the Eclipse glowed faintly, a beacon of hope amidst the vast unknown. Its journey was far from over, but one thing was certain: wherever it went, it carried with it the spirit of cooperation, courage, and resilience. And in doing so, it paved the way for humanity's place among the stars, a place not defined by fear or greed, but by compassion and unity. As sleep claimed the crew one by one, Nathan remained awake a little longer, his thoughts drifting to the future. He didn't know what lay ahead, but he was confident in one thing: whatever challenges arose, they would face them together. Because that was who they were, not just explorers, but builders of bridges, seekers of understanding, and guardians of hope. And with that thought, he finally allowed himself to rest, knowing that tomorrow would bring another day of discovery, another step forward into the great unknown.